Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you. It's the end of the season for many things. The Osprey nest activity is beginning to wind down because everybody has migration on their mind. And the guest ranch season is also winding down as many people have school and university on their mind. So it's that kind of year, a time of year when there's a lot of mixed emotions. We hate to say goodbye to our feathered friends. They just provide us with so much enjoyment and love throughout the season. And yet we're also happy that they've come to a successful conclusion and that we have three strong young chicks that are about to make their great voyage. And here to tell us about that great voyage and about osprey migration in general is our own Cherie. This is your last full day at the ranch too, is it not, Cherie?
This is my last full day. I start school on Monday.
On Monday.
So it's only fitting.
Yeah, we're really going to miss you. And I have to say, we really enjoyed your participation in Jules' River Romp the other day. People were commenting on how appropriate your boots were. You made a very striking pair out there. We've enjoyed having you all the way around this summer, Cherie, with your lots of expertise in the bird world, your love of riding, and you've just done an excellent job with our horse Butte. So thank you for spending the summer out here with us at Dunrovin. And thank you for all the great programs you put together on Osprey the last few weeks. Really appreciate it. And
Absolutely.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can tell us a little bit about the osprey migration.
All right. Yeah, let's talk about migration. It's only fitting. Everybody's leaving, including our feathered friends here pretty soon. And like Suzanne said, I'm grateful that we do have three strong chicks that have a bright future ahead of them. And here's what the nest will look like pretty soon. So let's get into migration. There's a lot of species of birds that migrate, and the answer to why is the biggest answer is food availability. Ospreys, as you guys know, have to depend on fish to eat, and when the water's really cold or even frozen over, they don't hang out at the top where the osprey could get them, so they got to fly south. They got to fly to warmer climates to spend those winter months. We have a lot of ospreys here in North America, and they tend to spend the winter in Central and South America. And then there's a good amount of breeding pairs in the UK, mostly in, I think, Scotland, and then some in England and Wales. And they tend to go over into West Africa, beneath the Sahara Desert, to spend their winters. Migrating raptors, osprey included, have just incredible navigational skills that some things about we are looking at and trying to find the answers to. Osprey in particular have some interesting morphological and behavioral characteristics that allow them to go long distances, both in the autumn and in the spring. The female typically leaves first in the fall, followed by the male, and then the young. I think swoop has stuck around until the last chick leaves. And each osprey migrates on its own. They hunt and they migrate on their own, which is interesting in a lot of different ways. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to a juvenile's first migration. Adults also will take more or less the same route on each migration, and they will winter in the same places and come back to the same breeding grounds. They're habitual birds. There is a trade-off between, we migrate to be able for food, but there's a lot of danger when it comes to migration. The mortality rate of ospreys and I think other birds can be about 6 times higher during migration than during sedentary periods, just because they are just flying for really long distances over deserts and long stretches of ocean. And juveniles on their first migration are particularly susceptible to the dangers of migration. So how do they make this extreme flight? There's a couple different kinds of flying that birds do during migration. The first is soaring gliding, in which the power to overcome drag comes from external sources. And then there's flapping flight, where they actually use it's flapping. They're using their flight muscles to generate that power. So flapping flight is a lot more metabolically costly, just because the power is coming from their own muscles and they have to fuel that. Whereas soaring, they can rely on these external sources, and the best way to do that is to exploit these thermal updrafts, which I found some good diagrams of. They're generated, I think, by a temperature gradient in the surface. Not too sure about all the specifics of it, but generally they can gain altitude by using these updrafts, and then they just soar to the next one, so that they don't have to flap their wings and use up that precious energy reserve. They can also use wind drafts that go up the cliff sides. This is a little more risky, just because then they have to adjust their migration path in order to follow topography that will allow for this. But the thermal updrafts are more used. Ospreys are, I'm not sure about unique, but they're incredible in the fact that they can use both. A lot of large raptors really depend on that soaring gliding, and the weather has to be pretty good for them to go far each day with that. But ospreys can use the soaring as well as the flapping, because they have the morphological adaptation of long, narrow wings that really reduce drag. So they are able to flap when needed, and they can even fly at night when needed using that flapping flight. So they can cover greater daily distances. All right, so the North American populations, you can see this nice map here, color-coded to show you where ospreys are spending their time in North and South America. So the biggest hazard for populations of ospreys around here is crossing that Gulf of Mexico. It's a long stretch, and I was having difficulty finding numbers just because there's so many different places that ospreys start and stop from. But I've seen that up to 5,000 miles in 2 to 3 weeks is like the extent of this migration. Some ospreys, they can overwinter in southern parts of the U.S., like California and Florida, warmer parts, because there is water around there and it stays warm enough for them to fish. And then as for the European population, you can see kind of their track here into Africa and back up. And they face the hazards of the desert and the Bay of Biscay between, I think, France and Spain, which is another long stretch of water. And I saw from one study an average of 4,200 miles in 45 days, which is a long ways. So how do we know about what osprey are doing on their migration? That we have used banding for a while, radar, and now we have these satellite transmitters that are a lightweight, balanced, solar-powered backpack kind of thing that they wear, that have GPS in them, really technologically advanced GPS that I think does every hour, sends data on where they're at, and it just really helps research and conservation to give us insights on what they're doing on this incredible journey. Around here in our neck of the woods, Rob Dominic at ReptorView Research actually fits juveniles right before they fledge with transmitters, just a few. And Boots was one of them that I thought was interesting. She was born at MPG Ranch in 2018 and fitted with a satellite transmitter. And you can see there those different routes that she's taken for migration. And just in 2020, you can see she kind of went all over Idaho there, which is just cool because we wouldn't have known that kind of behavior without those satellite transmitter packs. So in 2021, she did 2,500 miles in 13 days. And if you look really closely at this red line, which is her 2021 line, this is the wrong mouse, you can see that she went and attempted to cross the Gulf of Mexico, and I think got caught up in some weather and turned around and had to reroute, which goes against what we know about them wanting to take the same route year after year. And she eventually made it all the way up the coastline and made it back. And actually this spring, she passed right by, I think it's a female, passed right by where she was born at MPG and eventually found some place to nest. So that's just one story of one osprey with a satellite transmitter. Satellite transmitters are fitted, I think, at research institutions all over the country and the world to show us how they do it. Some of our own chicks have been sighted far away from here. Honor, a 2016 chick, was spotted off the coast of Texas in the winter of 2016, so on their first endeavor south. Same story for Honk in Grand Isle, Louisiana, spotted. And then Pip in April of 2020, so spring migration, right before in El Salvador. And then again, Pip was spotted at the Hellgate Nest this year. So 2019 chick doing very well. So let's talk about that first migration. Ospreys hunt and migrate alone. How do these birds who are alone on their first journey south, how do they know where to go? And that is a really good question. So as I said, adults travel using mostly the same route, and when they get to their winter grounds, they kind of hang out. Whereas we've observed juveniles, they get to winter grounds and really wander around, so a little bit of difference there. So you would think that maybe the juveniles would follow or at least be near adults that know what they're doing and know where they're going and how to get there. But they don't. They really are alone. The migratory periods of adults and juveniles do not always overlap. So the young ones, they rely entirely on an inherited program that gives them direction and distance. And there's a few theories as to how exactly this works, but I don't think anybody knows at this point. So ospreys, though, are better adapted to long distances than other raptors because of the wings. And one of the things that juveniles are more susceptible to is the wind drift. Adults can kind of compensate for that over long distances, and they tend to choose a better path, whereas juveniles obviously don't have that experience. And so that's one of the main reasons why that first migration is tricky and very high risk for them. The young ones, their migration is more affected by energetic constraints because they're new at fishing. They're doing their best to stay fueled, whereas adults, the pro fishermen, they can worry more about time and getting to those winter grounds faster and getting their winter spot back, and then in return getting to the summer spots faster and getting a good nest and being there early for that, because there's definitely selection pressure for both of those. But it's actually beneficial that the juveniles go alone because they can take their time, spend more time at stopover sites, and really just save energy more than make time. Whereas if they were following adult, they might be more at risk because the adults are very experienced and efficient, and so they might be able to go faster than the juveniles, and they would kind of just get worn out. So it's good that they have that internal program telling them where and how far to go, so that they can go on their own and take their time, use those stopover sites, which are just places where they stop to refuel, and just take their time. Basically, it gives them a better success rate. And then the juveniles, they typically spend the first year or two maybe in the wintering grounds before returning to, and especially in males, return to around the area that they were raised to try to find a nest and a suitable mate. I think that's all I have on migration. I think my last slide is just a thank you for a great summer at the ranch. I learned so much, and I really enjoyed my time here, and I'm looking forward to coming back next season. So I will be my last year of university coming up, and then hopefully I'll be back to hang out with the horses and talk about birds with y'all.
Thank you so much, Cherie. You've just been such a great employee, and we want to keep you around as long as possible. One of our new members asked exactly what you're studying in school. Could you give us a little thumbnail sketch of what you've been studying and the degree you're going to get?
Sure. My Bachelor of Science will be in ecology and organical biology, so plants and animals. And then I'm also going after a certificate in environmental ethics so that hopefully I can just be an environmental steward and be someone who can help with conservation of all sorts of animals and in our land in general. That's what I want to do.
Well, I know that you worked for Project Osprey in the summer of 2019, and that just really made you the ideal person, and now you're even more ideal for next summer. So I hope you'll stay around, and we'll see you again next summer.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. So I'm going to share my screen for just a moment. I have come to depend on both I Love and Celia for all things Dunrovin. If I Love doesn't know, then Celia does, and if Celia doesn't know, then I Love does. And they have given me a lot of really good information about our chicks and about the history of our chicks. So one thing that I thought I would share with you is some of the history of the last dates seen for the chicks and the adults that have appeared here at Dunrovin. Okay, and I think I just shared the wrong screen, so hang on here. This is an operator error, and I seem to be full of them today, so bear with me. Hang on. Okay, now I think we're sharing the correct screen. All right, so you'll see here that from 2012 to 2021, we know a little bit about the last sighting. So I can't say that these are exactly the date on which the migration started for these birds, but these are the last sighting of anybody on the web camera. So Harriet in 2012 left it on the 29th of August, and nobody kept track of Ozzy that year for some reason. And if people remember, that was the year in which the eggs did not hatch. So there were no chicks that year, just Ozzy and Harriet. So the next year, on 2013, there were 3 chicks that that hatched and all fledged. And you can see that the one chick migrated on the 26th of August, another chick on the 29th, and then Harriet left. And the last chick didn't leave until the 7th of September, and Ozzy was left right after that chick. And then in 2014, Ozzy died in August, and that's a story all to itself. We did find his body, and he has been I took him to a taxidermist, and he is now in a museum in Helena, Montana. But you can see that Harriet stayed until the last of the two chicks from that year migrated. She did not migrate first that year. She stayed with the chicks. And I'm going to actually recast this entire table to show what I think is really more important, and that is the order in which the birds migrate. So I've reorganized this entire chart here to show who migrated first, who migrated second, third, fourth, and fifth if there were three chicks. So in 2012, we don't know when Ozzy migrated, but Harriet went on the 29th of August. In 2013, two chicks went either on the same date or before Harriet left, and then Ozzy held back until that third chick left in September. And if I went through this year by year, the pattern that you would see is that an adult is always the last one to go. And in 2013, Ozzy was the last to go. In 2014, Harriet was the last to go because there was no Ozzy. He had been killed. And then in 2015, there were no eggs that hatched because she had lost Ozzy and she looked for a new mate. And we were all delighted when she found Hallelujah Hal. So the next year, Hal and Harriet had two chicks, and both of those chicks migrated on or before the same date as Harriet, and Hal still stuck around a few more days and was the last one to migrate. In 2017, Harriet was the first to migrate, and the two chicks that were produced that year migrated on the same day as Hal. They all left on the 1st of September. In 2018, again, Harriet was an earlier migrator. She left only 2 days after the first chick left. Then the second chick waited until September 8th to migrate, and Hal, of course, was the last one to sort of button up the whole operation. And again, you see that same pattern in 20, that the chicks migrated first. Harriet went first of the adults, and then Hal followed. And last year, with only one chick, Harriet migrated before the chick migrated, and Swoop stayed until that chick was on its way and left about a week later. So we don't know who is already taken off this year. I think that the last sighting of Harriet was on Tuesday, so she may indeed have migrated. I'm not sure that JJ has been seen in the last couple of days either, but I do know that Swoop and Maud and Pfizer have all been seen today, so we know that they're still around. But I think what's important here is the pattern. The female tends to leave during the migration with the chicks. She can either leave before or middle of the chick migration, but the dad almost always stays last and takes care of that chick. And no matter how long it takes, they will stay and stay and stay. So that's kind of the pattern. There was one more thing I'd like to show you here, and that is there's a Facebook site that I think many of you will be interested in. And that's this Osprey documentary feature that is going to be on Nature with PBS. I'm going to play the trailer for you, and it's a wonderful.
wildest places of South America, an ancient bird of prey embarks on one of nature's most dramatic and challenging migrations. Navigating over mountains, marsh, and open ocean, it arrives to one of North America's most diverse and vital ecosystems, nestled in the shadow of one of humankind's greatest cities. It is here where our story begins. Cosmovision proudly presents Osprey, the incredible true story of the most iconic raptor of planet Earth. Filmed over 5 years with unprecedented coverage, experience the ultimate glimpse into the lives of a lifelong partnership. Together, they must pick up the pieces after a hurricane's destruction. With ferocious determination, they'll defend their bond till their last breath, meeting any challenge head on. Through the fruits of their efforts, we witness a true miracle of nature unfold before our eyes. Hercules, the last born, imbued with the strength and fierce tenacity of his parents, triumphs against the steepest of nature's odds, rising to lead his family as Alpha. Alongside his sisters, he'll take on the fight of his life as he prepares for his own migration, one he must undertake alone. The young raptors learn their place alongside the other species making their way around the nest and within it. As the seasons change around them, theirs is a race against time, one with the highest stakes. A true family saga in one of the wildest places of our civilization's backyard. 1 year in the life of the world's original aquatic raptor. The one, the only, the Osprey.
I'm excited for that. I can hardly wait to see that. I think it's going to be a terrific video. I also wanted to draw everybody's attention to the book that we read last year as part of our Awesome Osprey project. I know that some of you who are here this year weren't with us last year, and I just wanted to remind you of the book Soaring with Fidel. It is about the migration of an osprey from New England all the way down to Venezuela. And I think the author, who is David Gessner, did just an excellent job with this book. He intertwines his own story with that of the osprey and gives a lot of really good scientific information as well. And our upcoming newsletter, I'm going to direct you to last year's recordings of the presentations we had regarding this book, because our curator for the Awesome Osprey Project, Michael Academia, supplemented his book with a lot of really good information. And we also had a literary guide help us walk through some of the literary aspects of the book. So for those of you who haven't read it, I will give you the links to those broadcasts in next week's newsletter. And I also wanted to let you know that I have been in contact with Michael Academia, and he has promised me that this coming fall, when he is finished with his Osprey fieldwork as a graduate student for the College of William and Mary near Chesapeake Bay in Virginia, he is going to prepare a broadcast for us, and he's going to go over all of the material that we collected for him. He has developed a paper. He's hoping to get that paper accepted and give a presentation at a conference that's coming up on ospreys. And much of that is information that all of you collected, helped him collect, and he is anxious to talk with us and to give us an update on all of the great things that he's been learning from his field project. So there's going to be some things coming up on ospreys, even as our ospreys decide to migrate from us. And, you know, they could still be here another couple weeks. Everybody's speculating that our Maud is going to be the one who's living in the basement of their parents' apartment till the very last moment. So she and Swoop could be here for some time. You never know what's going to happen, and that's one of the great reasons to hang around and keep coming back. Unless there are other questions in the chat, I'm going to give it a go right now. I'm going to again thank Cherie for just a great season and great help on all of the Osprey information. And I want to thank all of you for contributing so much to our summers here and giving me such terrific information to put in our history of the Ospreys here at Dunrobin. So with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned. We'll be back periodically over the coming weeks, as we always are. And goodbye, Cherie. Again, thank you for all your help this year.
Thank you.